And now let's add dependency to an app in another repository. Well, first of all, we need, of course, to create that repository. So let's just go here and say akms algo pte to create another PTE repository. Use this template and place it in the same organization. We'll call this one common. And again, we'll create a private repository. Now, after creating the repository, we need to create an app in here that we want to have a dependency on. I'll just use to create the new app one here and call this common again, ready. And this one 90,000 to 91,000. Include sample code, yes please. And let's just do a direct commit in order to save some time. So after this workflow is completed, we will modify the app and create a build of that. So the workflow is done and we have created an app called common. Let's see, app.json, and just copy those lines. Let's also modify the hello world and call this custom list extension 3, and also I'll comment this one to commit the changes. Let's go to action and see that it now kicks off a build, and when that build is done, we can then create a dependency on this app in our app 1 and see that we can get to that and build that. With that, we can see that the build now completed, and we now have a repository with an app that we can create a dependency for in the other repository. So let's shift to VS Code and add a dependency to our app in the app.json file. We'll do that by pasting in the lines we just copied. Remove the comma. So beside adding a dependency here, we of course need to tell algo where to get to this one. So what we'll do in that is create a setting in the algo settings file called app dependency probing paths with the pointer to the repository, a release status to get the latest build, and then a name of the secret containing the access token that provides me access to that build. Now, access tokens or personal access tokens is a weakness in GitHub. These tokens tend to have more permissions than need be. Over the next release, so Q4 of 2022, GitHub will release a functionality that allows you to create more access tokens that have like more granular privileges, meaning that you could provide read access to a repository and not actually provide your personal access to any given token. But for now, this one shows very well what we want to do. Let's save this one and say add dependency, commit, and push. Navigating to GitHub, seeing that it kicks off a workflow with our dependency, and let's see what happens. I know that the deploy step will fail, and I'm gonna tell you why a little later. So let's look at the details of this one. As we can see, the build was done, and let's look at the build while it's trying to deploy this one, just to see what was actually compiled. we look at compiling apps here, we'll see that compiled our app1 base, it compiled our app1. It didn't compile our dependency. Let's look at installing apps. There you have the dependency that was downloaded as part of resolving dependencies. It found out that it was missing this common part, and it looked in app dependency probing paths, downloaded that, and installed the apps. So let's have a look at the deploy step here. It tries to deploy our app to our QA environment and the delivery piece as well. And we can see that the deploy step fails. Looking at why that is, we'll have a look at publishes app1 base. It publishes app1, but it does not publish our common repository. That one comes from a different repository. It wasn't built together with this one. As such, it isn't included in the apps artifacts. In order to make this work, we need to create an artifact, a build artifact with the dependencies actually used in order to build this. So what we do is we go back to this one and create a property called generate dependency artifact and generate the artifact. Push that one. Now that'll kick off another build, and let's have a look at how that one goes. And we can see that the build step completed, and now it tries to deploy our app again. And the deploy successfully completed this time. Clicking at this one, looking at deploy, we'll see that it this time does deploy the app1 base, and then it deploys the common, and then it deploys app1. So app1 is deployed at the very last because it has a dependency on the other one, so it actually deploys the apps in the order of dependencies. So let's have a look at this one. So now we know that it installed our app, but where did it get it from? So it downloaded it, of course, from our dependency. But as we can see the artifacts here, there's a new artifact called dependencies, and that's the generate dependency artifact. This one will contain the actual dependencies used in order to build the apps. So what you need in order to install the apps, if you do not have these dependencies already installed, you need to install the dependencies together with the apps. And that is exactly what the deploy step does. It goes through and installs dependencies if they are not already installed in a similar or newer version, and then it installs the apps afterwards. The last thing we should look at is where does it actually download these dependencies. So if we look at the build process here and click at the run secrets, we'll see that it looks after the various secrets, and then it finds the secret GH token workflow was retrieved from the GitHub environment and used then for the dependency. So you can see which secrets are downloaded in the secrets workflow or job, and in the run pipeline job you'll see that it enumerates, analyzes repository and checks the app dependency probing paths, and here you will see that it goes and downloads artifacts for the organization or for the repository that you have in your app dependency probing paths. And if you have like 5 different apps in this repository, it will download them all, but of course only use the ones that are referenced from your app, which is what you are expecting as well. If the common is a multi-project repository, you can also set which projects to download in your app dependency probing paths. With that, we are ready with our attempt to add a dependency to a project from a different repository. Let's continue with the next task.